Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're 22 years old. You're standing in the mud. It's raining so hard your rifle feels like it's glued to your shoulder. And 10 feet away, there's a creature, not a man, not an animal, something that traveled 1,000 light years to kill you. It has 4 arms, teeth like shattered glass, and it just watched you shoot its brother. Now imagine you have a choice. Not a tactical choice, not a strategic choice, a human choice. And the thing is, no one gave you the authority to make it. No general, no president, no United Nations. Just you, your squad, and the weight of every human being who ever lived sitting on your chest. Because whatever you decide next, that's what they'll remember. The aliens, the historians, the ghosts. They won't remember the politicians who debated. They won't remember the ships or the bombs or the speeches. They'll remember you. One person, in the rain, in the mud, making a call that writes the first line of humanity's permanent record in the galaxy. My name is Sergeant Elena Vasquez, and this is what I did. Now sit tight, because it gets worse before it gets better. The first time I killed a Zilrath, I threw up inside my helmet. That's not in the recruitment brochures. No one tells you that the first sentient being you shoot, something that can talk, that can reason, that has a name its mother gave it, might make your body revolt before your brain catches up. I remember the taste of half-digested MRE chili and the sting of bile in my sinuses. I remember Private Kim screaming over the squad channel, not a battle cry, just a sound, a note, a piece of his soul tearing loose. And I remember the silence after. That's the part that really haunts you. The way the universe doesn't applaud or mourn. It just watches. We were 3 weeks into the siege of Obsidian Gorge, and nothing had gone according to plan. Nothing even close. The brass had called it a containment operation, which is military code for we have no idea what we're doing, but we can't say that. The Zilrath had punched through the Demeter line on a Tuesday. By Thursday, they were 40 kilometers inside contested space. By Saturday, my squad, 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company, 7th Cavalry, was dug into a drainage culvert outside a town called Esperanza, which means hope in Spanish. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't supposed to be in charge. That was Staff Sergeant Malik's job. But Malik took a plasma bolt to the throat on day 2, and I watched him drown in his own blood while Doc and Wynn tried to seal the wound with combat gauze. The look in Malik's eyes wasn't fear. It was frustration. Annoyance, almost. Like he'd been called away from something important. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was still strong, even with his trachea melted, and he pulled me down until his lips were against my ear. "Don't let them make you forget," he whispered. "You're not just soldiers. You're people. They need to see that." Then he was gone, and I was the ranking non-commissioned officer left standing. "Congratulations, Sergeant Vasquez. You just got promoted by enemy action. Try not to get everyone killed." My team looked at me like I'd grown a second head. 6 of them, counting me. 7 originally, but Malik was gone. We had Private First Class Marcus Kim, 19 years old, from Chicago, a sniper with 20/20 vision and the emotional regulation of a caffeinated squirrel. Specialist Diana Reyes, our communications expert, who could hack anything with a circuit board and who swore in Tagalog when she was nervous, which was always. Corporal James Sully Sullivan, a walking tank of a man from Boston, carrying the squad automatic weapon, who smiled too much for someone whose job was killing. Specialist Tanya Okonkwo, our medic, who everyone called Doc, even though she had the bedside manner of an angry hornet. And Private First Class Leo Chun, our demolitions expert, who wore wire-rimmed glasses and looked like a high school librarian but could rig a door to explode with a pack of gum and a paperclip. 6 people, a culvert, a planet that wanted us dead, and an alien army that outnumbered us 1,000 to 1. The first week was pure survival. We moved at night, slept in shifts during the day, and avoided contact whenever possible. The Zilrath had heat vision and could smell fear. I'm not being poetic, that's a documented fact. Their olfactory receptors could detect cortisol spikes from 300 meters. They could smell when you were about to break. So we learned to control our breathing. We learned to think calm thoughts. Kim imagined his grandmother's kitchen. I imagined the ocean. Sully imagined baseball stats. Whatever worked. On day 8, we found the cache. It was buried under a collapsed supply depot, half a kilometer east of the gorge. Crates of rations, ammunition, medical supplies, And one thing no one expected, a Zil-Rath field manual. Encrypted, but Reyes cracked it in 40 minutes because she said the aliens used a modified Fibonacci sequence for their encryption, which was lazy coding. Honestly, I'm embarrassed for them. The manual was a goldmine. It contained patrol routes, supply line maps, and, most importantly, a prisoner manifest. The Zil-Rath had been taking humans. Not killing them, taking them. There were names, ranks, unit designations. Dozens of them, maybe more. And one of the names was Captain Amelia Hart, my former commanding officer from before the war. She'd gone missing during the initial assault on the Demeter line. We'd all assumed she was dead. But here she was listed on page 47 of an alien manual designated as high-value asset, behavioral analysis. They're studying us, Reyes whispered, her face pale in the glow of her datapad. They're not just capturing POWs. They're interviewing them, figuring out how we think. What? I asked. She looked at me. Doesn't that scare you more than the alternative? It did. It scared me more than anything. Because if the Zil-Rath were studying us, that meant they saw us as something more than targets. It meant they were trying to understand us. And understanding, real understanding, leads to one of two places. Empathy, or extinction-level exploitation. There's no middle ground. I made a decision that night. A stupid decision. A decision that would probably get us all killed. We were going to find the prisoner camp. And we were going to get them out. Doc Okonkwo pulled me aside when I told the team. She had that look, the one she got when she was about to tell you something you didn't want to hear. Her voice was low, almost tender, which was terrifying coming from her. You know, this is a rescue mission with no exfiltration, no air support, and no fallback position, right? She said. Charlie Company doesn't even know we're still alive. We're ghosts, Elena. Ghosts don't rescue people. Ghosts survive. Since when do you care about surviving? I asked. She smiled. It was a sad smile. I care about you surviving. Someone has to be alive to hate me after the war. That was document. She'd lost 3 siblings to a Zil-Rath orbital strike in the first week of the invasion. She had every right to be bitter, to be reckless, to want revenge. But instead, she'd channeled all that rage into keeping us alive. She patched our wounds, scolded us for not drinking enough water, and once threatened to sedate Sully when he tried to charge a machine gun nest. Dead heroes don't get medals, she'd said. They get body bags. And I'm not carrying your fat ass 6 clicks back to camp. We moved out at 300 hours, under a sky so full of stars it looked like someone had spilled salt on black velvet. The Zil-Rath had landed in force 3 months ago, and somehow the stars were still there. Still beautiful. Still indifferent. I tried to find Orion's belt, but the constellations were wrong from this angle. Even the sky had abandoned us. The prisoner camp was located in a geothermal valley, 12 kilometers southeast of our position. The Zil-Rath used the heat vents to power their equipment, which made the place glow orange on thermal imaging. Reyes had patched together a crude drone from salvage parts, a quadcopter with a camera duct taped to the bottom, and we'd gotten grainy footage of the compound. It wasn't pretty. Watchtowers, electric fences, barracks made of prefab alien alloy, and a central building that pulsed with a strange, rhythmic light, like a heartbeat made of neon. That's the interrogation facility, Chun said, adjusting his glasses. If they're doing behavioral analysis, it's in there. Then, that's where Hart is, I said. Sully racked the bolt on his saw. The sound was loud in the quiet. So we blow the fence, grab the prisoners, and exfil through the eastern drainage trench. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, Reyes muttered. The fence is electrified with a frequency that'll stop a human heart. The watchtowers have overlapping fields of fire. And the eastern trench? It's a mudslide hazard. One good rain, and we're buried alive. Kim spoke up for the first time in hours. His voice was soft, almost dreamy. My grandmother used to say that the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. We don't have to save everyone tonight. We just have to save someone. I looked at him. 19 years old. Hadn't shaved in a week. Dark circles under his eyes. But there was something in his face, a calm, a certainty that I hadn't seen before. War does that to some people. It burns away the noise and leaves behind the signal. Okay, I said. Here's the plan. The plan was insane. The plan was borderline suicidal. The plan was the only plan we had. Phase 1. Chun would use his explosives to create a diversion at the north gate. Loud, flashy, convincing. Phase 2. While the Zilrath scrambled to respond, Reyes would disable the fence's power grid by overloading a nearby junction box. Phase 3. Sully, Kim, and I would breach the central building, locate the prisoners, and exfiltrate through the eastern trench. Phase 4. Doc and Reyes would provide cover and coordinate extraction. Phase 4 was the lie. There was no extraction, no cavalry coming over the hill. Once we went in, we were on our own. Any questions? I asked. Sully raised his hand. Yeah, what's the over-under on me getting to use the saw? You'll get to use the saw, I said. He grinned. Then, no questions. We moved into position at 0415. The valley was quiet, too quiet. No windy, no insects, no distant artillery humbly. Just the low hum of the fences and the occasional clank of alien machinery. I could see the watchtowers clearly now, silhouetted against the geothermal glow. Each one held a single Zilrath sentinel, their long limbs folded like praying mantises, their heads swiveling slowly side to side. I killed my first Zilrath 4 days ago. I still threw up, but this time I swallowed it down. No time for weakness. No room for regret. Chin's explosives went off at 0430 exactly. The north gate vanished in a pillar of fire and shrapnel. The shockwave hit us a second later, a hot, dry wind that smelled of ozone and something else, something like burned cinnamon. The watchtower sentinels snapped to attention, their heads swiveling faster now, and then they were dropping from their perches, scrambling toward the blast. Go, I whispered into the squad channel. Go, go, go. Reyes hit the junction box. The fence died with a whine and a shower of sparks. Sully buelled through the gap, saw up, scanning for threats. Kim followed, his sniper rifle slung across his back, a pistol in his hands. I brought up the rear, counting paces, counting heartbeats, counting the seconds until everything went wrong. It took 47 seconds. We were halfway to the central building when the alarms went off. Not sirens, something worse. A deep, resonant thrumming that vibrated in my chest like a giant's bass drum. The ground shook. The geothermal vents belched steam. And then the lights came on, floodlights, brilliant white, blinding after so long in the dark. Contact front, Sully shouted, and opened fire. The saw roared. Tracers streaked through the night, painting lines of fire across the compound. I saw Zilrath falling, their angular bodies crumpling, their forearms flailing, but more kept coming. They poured out of the barracks like ants from a disturbed nest. Dozens. Hundreds. We were never going to make it. Chun, I yelled. Secondary charges. Now, Chun was already moving. He'd planted backup explosives along our approach route. Small, directional, timed. He triggered them, and the ground between us and the main Zilrath force erupted in a curtain of dirt and flame. For a few precious seconds, we had cover. Sully, suppress left. Kim, watch our 6. Reyes, where's that door? Reyes's voice crackled in my earpiece, strained and breathless. Central building entrance is 40 meters ahead. But there's a problem. The heartbeat light? It's not a light. It's a shield. Some kind of energy barrier. I can't crack it remotely. Then, we crack it up close, I said. Chun, you're with me. Sully, Kim, hold this position. Do not die. No promises, Sully said and laughed. Actually laughed. The man was insane. Beautifully, gloriously insane. Chun and I ran. The ground was slick with mud and something darker, blood, maybe your hydraulic fluid or both. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. The central building loomed ahead, its walls pulsing with that terrible rhythmic glow. Up close, I could see it clearly, a shimmering field of energy like heat haze covering the entire structure. Can you blow it? I asked Chun. He studied the barrier for a fraction of a second. That was all he needed. No, but I can disrupt it. Give me 30 seconds. He pulled a device from his pack, a modified plasma torch, jury-rigged with a capacitor from a dead rifle. He pressed it against the barrier, and the air screamed. Not a mechanical sound. A living sound, like the barrier was in pain. The glow flickered, stuttered, died. Chun slumped against the wall, his face pale. Doors open, he whispered. Go. I went. The inside of the central building was wrong. Not alien wrong, not scary wrong. Just wrong. The walls were smooth and white like a hospital. The floors were clean. The air smelled of antiseptic. And Lining the corridors were cages, human-sized cages made of the same shimmering alloy as the fence. In each cage, a person. Some were awake, some were asleep, some were staring at nothing, their eyes empty, their mouths moving silently. I found Captain Hart in the last cage at the end of the hall. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her uniform torn, her hair a mess, but her eyes were sharp, focused. She looked at me like she'd been expecting me. "Sergeant Vasquez," she said, "took you long enough." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Captain, we're getting you out of here." She shook her head. "No, you're not. You're going to listen to me first." I started to argue, but she held up a hand. The gesture was so human, so familiar, that it stopped me cold. "They've been interviewing me for 3 weeks," she said. "Not torturing, interviewing. They want to know why we fight, why we don't surrender, why we keep going when there's no hope." And I told them the truth, Elena. I told them it's because of each other. Because we're not just individuals. We're a team, a family, a species that refuses to quit. She stood up slowly, her joints popping. Even after weeks in a cage, she moved like a soldier, like someone who'd never stopped being in command. "They didn't understand at first," she continued. "Their society is based on hierarchy, dominance. The strong rule the weak. But we've been showing them something different. Every soldier they've captured, every human they've questioned, we've all told the same story. That our strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our bonds." I heard gunfire outside. Sully's saw still chattering. Kim's pistol popping in short bursts. Chin's voice over the comm, shouting something I couldn't quite make out. "We have to go," I said. "Right now, or we're all dead." Hart grabbed my arm. Her grip was iron. "Listen to me. There's a Zilrath commander in this building. A general by their standards. His name, well, his designation is Threshkel. He's the one conducting the interviews. He's the one who wrote the manual you found. And he's waiting for you, Elena. He's been waiting for someone like you." "Why me?" "Because you're the first human who's come to rescue us instead of just trying to survive. That's the variable he couldn't predict. That's the data point he's been missing." The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The heartbeat light outside flickered and died. "So what do I do?" I asked. Hart smiled. It was a terrible smile. A knowing smile. "You go talk to him." Found Threshkel in a room that looked like an office. A desk. A chair. A window that showed the chaos outside. Sully and Kim still fighting, Reyes and Doc still covering, Chin still blowing things up. The alien commander sat behind the desk, his 4 hands folded in front of him, his head tilted at an angle that might have been curiosity or boredom or something in between. He was tall, maybe 7 feet, with a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed like oil on water. His face was a nightmare of mandibles and compound eyes, but there was something almost familiar about the way he held himself. The posture of someone who'd spent a lifetime making decisions. Someone who carried weight. "Sergeant Elena Vasquez," he said. His voice was synthetic, a translator device clipped to his collar, but the words were clear. Accented. Almost musical. "I've been expecting you. Everyone keeps saying that," I replied. "It's getting old." One of his mandibles twitched. "Amusement? I had no idea. Your comrades are impressive. They fight with a ferocity that defies logic. But you're different. You came here not to destroy, but to rescue." "Why?" I thought about lying. I thought about giving him some tactical nonsense about force multiplication and strategic assets. But Hart's words echoed in my head. "He's been waiting for someone like you." "Because that's what we do," I said. "We take care of each other. Even when it's stupid. Even when it's suicidal. Especially then." Threshkel was silent for a long moment. The gunfire outside seemed to fade, as if the building itself was holding its breath. "Your species confuses us," he said finally. "You are fragile. Your bodies break easily. Your technology is primitive. By every metric we use to measure strength, you should have been conquered in days. Yet here you are, 3 months later, still fighting, still refusing to submit. And now you invade a secure facility with 6 soldiers to rescue prisoners who cannot help you in the war. It is illogical." "War isn't logical," I said. "Never has been." "Then what is it?" I opened my mouth to answer, and then I closed it, because I realized I didn't know. I've been fighting for months, years if you counted the training, and I never stopped to ask what it was for. Survival? Revenge? Honor? All of the above? None of the above? It's about choosing, I said slowly. Every day, every battle, every breath. You choose what kind of person you want to be. And those choices add up. They become who you are. They become who we are as a species. Threshkael stood. His full height was imposing, but I didn't step back. I couldn't. My feet were rooted to the floor, not by fear, but by something else. Something that felt like purpose. I have interviewed 147 humans, he said. Soldiers, civilians, old, young. Each one gave me different answers to the same questions. But you were giving me something new. You were giving me a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Of empathy, of sacrifice, of the willingness to risk everything for someone else. He gestured toward the window, where Sully Saw had finally gone silent. Your team is still out there, still fighting, still dying. For you, for the prisoners, for people they have never met. Why? I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. I blinked them back, because they're my family, and you don't abandon family. The building shook again. This time, it wasn't Chin's explosives. It was something heavier, something closer. The ceiling cracked. Plaster, or whatever alien equivalent, rained down on us. Your extraction is failing, Threshkael said. Your diversion is exhausted. In approximately 4 minutes, my reinforcements will arrive, and everyone in this compound will be killed or recaptured. You have no way out. He was right. I knew he was right. I'd known it from the moment I decided to come here. This was a one-way mission, a suicide run, and I dragged my team into it because I couldn't let go of the idea that we could make a difference. But then I heard Kim's voice in my earpiece. Not panicked, not scared, just tired. Sergeant, he said, I found something. In the eastern trench. It's a tunnel. Unfinished. Leads out of the valley. Maybe half a click. Can we fit everyone? I asked. If we move fast. Real fast. I looked at Threshkael. He looked at me. The moment stretched, thin, and fragile, like a spider's web in the wind. You have a choice to make, I said to him. You can call your reinforcements. You can kill us all. You can keep studying us, keep interviewing us, keep trying to understand why we won't break. Or you can let us go. Let us take our people. And you can watch what we do next. Why would I do that? Because you want to see if we're worth understanding. And you can't understand a species you've already destroyed. Threshkael's mandibles twitched again. Longer this time. A pattern I couldn't decipher. Then he stepped aside. Go, he said. Take your prisoners. Take your family. But know this, Sergeant Vasquez. I will be watching. And one day, I will ask you again. What is war for? What are you choosing? I hope, for your sake, you have a better answer by then. I didn't wait. I ran. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Pure, unadulterated, screaming chaos. Chin blew the cages open. Reyes guided us through the tunnels with nothing but a dying datapad and a prayer. Doc patched wounds on the move, her hands steady even as blood slicked her gloves. Sully carried 2 prisoners on his shoulders, his saw abandoned, his face set in a mask of pure determination. Kim covered our rear, picking off Zilrath pursuers with shots that seemed almost lazy. Pop, reload, like he was at a shooting range instead of running for his life. And me? I counted. I counted heads, counted paces, counted heartbeats. We started with 6 soldiers. We added 37 prisoners. We lost 2 before we reached the tunnel. A civilian who couldn't keep up, and a soldier who turned back to help him. I didn't see what happened to them. I didn't want to. The tunnel was a natural lava tube, carved by ancient geothermal flows. It was dark, narrow, and smelled of sulfur. Water dripped from the ceiling, cold and sharp. People stumbled. People fell. People cried. I kept moving, 1 foot in front of the other. Don't think. Don't feel. Just move. We emerged into the open air 43 minutes later. Dawn was breaking over the valley, a pale, watery light that turned the mud to gold and the blood to black. The Zilrath reinforcements had arrived, but they were on the other side of the ridge, chasing phantoms and false trails. We were safe. For now. Captain Hart found me, sitting on a rock, staring at my hands. They were shaking. I couldn't make them stop. You did good, Sergeant, she said, sitting down beside me. You did real good. I left people behind, I said. 2 of them. Maybe more. You saved 37. Against all odds. Without support. Without hope. That's not failure, Elena. That's a miracle. I looked at her, really looked. She was thinner than I remembered, older, but her eyes were the same, steady, unshakable. What do we do now? I asked. She shrugged. Now we survive. Now we keep choosing. And maybe, just maybe, we show the Zilrath that humanity isn't something you can understand from a cage. It's something you have to experience. In the mud, in the rain, in the moments when everything falls apart, and you have to decide what kind of person you want to be. I thought about Threshkale's question. What is war for? I still didn't have an answer. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the answer wasn't something you found. Maybe it was something you built. Day by day, choice by choice. Sully walked over, his uniform shredded, his face caked with mud, and something darker. He had a stupid grin on his face. Hey, Sarge, he said. Next time we do a rescue mission, can we maybe do it somewhere with fewer things trying to kill us? No promises, I said. He laughed. It was the best sound I'd ever heard. The weeks after the rescue were a blur of movement and misery. We marched. We hid. We fought small skirmishes and avoided large ones. The prisoners, most of them civilians, engineers, and support personnel, slowed us down, but they also kept us human. They told stories around the campfires. They shared food we didn't have. They held each other when the nightmares came. One of them was a woman named Mira, a linguist who'd been studying Zilrath communication patterns before the war. She was quiet, observant, and she watched my team like they were a puzzle she was trying to solve. One night, she pulled me aside. You know Threshkale let you go on purpose, right? She said. I nodded. I figured. He's not like the others. He's been advocating for a different approach, one based on understanding rather than extermination. That's why he was running the interviews. He's trying to build a case, to convince his superiors that humanity is worth something more than conquest. And what do you think? I asked. She smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was hope in it too. I think he's right. But I also think he doesn't understand the full picture. We're not just worth something, Sergeant. We're worth everything. Because we're the only species in the galaxy that's figured out how to turn weakness into strength. How to take our brokenness and make it into a bridge. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said nothing. I just sat there listening to the night sounds and tried to remember the last time I'd felt safe. It took us another 2 weeks to reach friendly lines. Charlie Company had pulled back to a secondary defensive position called Firebase Phoenix, a cluster of bunkers and trenches carved into the side of a mountain. When they saw us coming, 6 ragged soldiers leading 3 dozen walking ghosts, they didn't cheer. They didn't salute. They just stared. And then, one by one, they started clap. I walked through that applause like I was walking through a dream. It didn't feel real. None of it felt real. The rescue, the tunnel, Threshkale, the faces of the people we'd saved, some crying, some laughing, some just standing there with their mouths open, unable to believe they were still alive. Colonel Vance met me at the command bunker. He was a tall, thin man with a face like carved wood and eyes that had seen too much. He shook my hand, actually shook it like I was a person instead of a subordinate, and he said, Sergeant Vasquez, you've done something extraordinary, something that's going to change the course of this war. I just did my job, sir, I said. He shook his head. No, you did more than that. You showed them what we are, and that's a weapon no one can counter. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I'd seen Threshkale's eyes. I'd heard his questions, and I knew, deep in my gut, in that place where fear lives, that the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The debriefings took 3 days. I told the story so many times I started to believe it wasn't mine, that it had happened to someone else. Someone braver, someone stronger, someone who didn't throw up after a first kill. On the 4th day, I got the message. It was delivered by a drone, a small quadrotor thing that landed on my cot at 0300. It projected a hologram into the air above my head. And there, shimmering in blue light, was Threshkale. Sergeant Vasquez, he said, I told you I would be watching. I have watched. And I have questions. I sat up, my heart hammering. How did you get this drone past our defenses? I did not. Your defenses are inadequate. But that is not why I'm contacting you. I am contacting you because the vote has happened. The Zilrath High Command has made a decision about your species. I felt the blood drain from my face. What decision? Threshkale paused. His mandibles twitched, that same pattern I couldn't decipher. We are not going to exterminate you, he said. But we're not going to leave either. We're going to stay. We're going to watch. And We're going to wait. Because we have decided that your species is not a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited. You're something else. Something we do not have a word for. Then, use our word, I said. What are we? He was silent for a long time. The hologram flickered. The drone's battery was dying. You are the first species we have encountered that fights not for territory or resources or survival alone, but for meaning. You fight for the idea of each other. And that idea, that fragile, illogical, beautiful idea, may be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The hologram dissolved. The drone dropped to the floor with a soft thud. And I sat there in the dark, alone, shaking, trying to understand what had just happened. We hadn't won the war. We hadn't driven the Zilrath from our world. But we had done something else. Something maybe more important. We had made them stop. We had made them think. We had made them ask the question instead of just giving the answer. The next morning, I gathered my team in the mess tent. Sully was there, smiling, already planning his next stupid heroics. Kim was there, quiet, his eyes distant but his hands steady. Reyes was there, typing furiously on a salvaged datapad, muttering about encryption protocols. Chin was there, cleaning his glasses, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Doc was there, checking everyone's vitals, pretending not to care. And Captain Hart was there, standing at the head of the table, her uniform crisp, her hair pulled back, her face unreadable. I've been reassigned, she said. Command wants me to lead a new unit, a special operations team focused on prisoner extraction and alien liaison. And I want all of you to come with me. Sully hooped. Kim nodded once. Reyes looked up from her datapad and smiled. A real smile, not her usual nervous grin. Chun adjusted his glasses and said, "Will I get to blow up more things?" "Probably," Hart said. "Then I'm in." Doc crossed her arms. "What about the war? What's going to stop fighting and start talking?" Hart met her eyes. "No, we're going to do both. Because that's what we are, specialists. We're the species that fights and talks at the same time. We're the species that rescues prisoners and studies aliens and throws up after our first kill and keeps going anyway. We're not perfect, but we're not done." Doc looked at me. I looked at her. And in that look, everything unspoken passed between us. The fear, the grief, the hope, the stupid, stubborn, ridiculous hope that maybe, just maybe, we can make something better out of all this destruction. "Fine," Doc said. "But if anyone gets themselves killed on a rescue mission again, I'm bringing them back just to kill them myself." Hart left. It was the first time I'd ever heard her laugh. It sounded like breaking glass and morning light. We shipped out the next day. New orders, new mission, new war. But I carried something with me that I hadn't had before. A question. Thresh KL's question. What is war for? I still didn't have the answer. But I had something better. I had a team. I had a purpose. And I had the knowledge that whatever I decided next, whatever any of us decided next, would define humanity's reputation forever. Not the politicians, not the generals, not the speeches or the treaties or the flag-waving parades. Just us, in the mud, in the rain, making choices. And that, I realized, was the whole point. We don't win wars with weapons. We win them with decisions. One decision at a time. One person at a time. Until the enemy stops seeing us as targets and starts seeing us as something they cannot understand, something they cannot forget, something they cannot help but respect. My name is Sergeant Elena Vasquez, and this is what I chose. The galaxy is still watching. Let them.